Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with life coach Cindie Chavez. Today is Wednesday, July the 15th, 2020, and it is 4 p.m. New York time. But wherever you are in the world, thanks for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And we're happy to have a third person joining us. Cindie, we don't do this all the time. It's usually just you and me.
I know. I'm
I
excited.
know. It's fun. I mean, we do interviews all the other shows. For some reason, we've skipped Wednesdays until now, and we're bending the rule a bit, which is good. I like that. But we have somebody who's actually a listener who's joining us, and she's written a book that had a fascinating title. So we figured we'd have her come on the show and tell us a little bit about it. So Sheri Jacobs, first of all, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you both for having me, Walt and Cindie. It's a pleasure. And it's a little surreal for me. You know, I listened to your podcast, as you noted, and you talk literally about the law of attraction, putting it out there. I believe there was an author in one of the podcasts recently you referred to as E squared, if I'm getting
Yes.
the title.
Yes.
You put it out there, you act as if, and there's all these magical, and they're not magical. We call it magical because we don't understand it with our five senses, but there is that mystery that when you entwine that mystery with true faith, magic does happen.
And by the way, Cindie is the one who introduced me to E squared by Pam Grout. She's the one who brought me to Pam Grout. Yeah.
Well, thank you, because now you brought me to her. So
that's great.
My reading list. Yeah, I'm excited about my future experiments into the soul. But yeah, I was listening and I thought, well, you know what? Let me put it out there. And I with the magic of her book, I wrote Walt that evening. And when you know it, I acted as if, and I said, I'm surrendering to it, that nice paradox of wanting something so badly and simultaneously surrendering to whatever it is. And I went to bed and I woke up and there was that just genuine warm email from you. So thank you. I felt like a girl inside, like jumping up and down.
Awesome. I love that story. And you've got it. The idea of holding both ends of the spectrum, that's the secret. That's what unlocks everything, is being able to not be attached to the outcome, even though you are holding that desire. So see, you did it. It worked. And here you are.
It does work. It does work. And if you pay attention, I'm sure you know this, Cindie and Walt, there are signs all the time. COVID-19 has had me finding a lot of silver linings in the pandemic, one of which is not having to shower as much.
There you go.
Yeah, I was showering for today. This was special. And of course, what song comes up? But there were two actually in a row. And I feel like the universe has a great sense of humor. It was something with Michael Bublé about Hollywood. It means when you don't care at all and you matter the most, that's when Hollywood comes to you. And I don't think Hollywood is meant literally. My interpretation, Hollywood in terms of the star is you.
I'm laughing about you saying, you don't have to shower as much, in the context of holding both ends of the paradox, because the other side is that you do have to wash your hands 100 times a day, right?
I thought that too.
There's that paradox.
There it is.
And it's a good thing that Hollywood doesn't actually show up, because I don't think it would fit here in my home. I mean, it's just too small. It wouldn't happen.
But he's in Hollywood with you, just your presence.
Yeah, for sure.
And I guess that's a natural segue into the book that I wrote, The Friendship Diet. And I'm glad, Walt, that it intrigued you.
I like the title, The Friendship Diet. Well, I mean, I love anything that has friendship in it. You don't see that as a word very often in a title, but I like that one. That just kind of grabbed my attention. And then having a diet that associated with it, and obviously it's going to be an emotional diet. Oh, okay, I'm curious.
That's it. That we learn best as humans through humor and a shift in perception. Our barrier to accepting challenging things goes down when we're coming from a place of levity. If you could get someone to emit a true belly laugh, you have them vulnerable and you have them open to the prospect of a new way of thinking. And this book came about uh, from authentic living on earth well over 4 decades. It's almost like stand-up comedy meets self-help. You know, these are the things where I messed up. Don't do what I did. And you'll do really well. Self-effacing, but also just honest. And I invite readers at the end of every chapter to wax reflective, using the analogy of edible nutrition and emotional nutrition.
Jeffrey also points out in our live stream, by the way, he says the universe has a sense of humor because we have a sense of humor, hopefully.
Right. Well, that's just, yeah. I mean, if you can't laugh in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, you're in trouble.
Well, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of, I started making these memes that you'll see. You know, I'm not talented enough to show you them, but I purposely have been using animals because they're non-gender specific, not, you know, no race. I'm not trying, you know, but we can all laugh at the unconditional love of furry creatures, and I juxtapose them with, you know, COVID dating during the pandemic. You know, when your date tells you COVID is a hoax, and then you
I love the face.
I'm big on humor. I'm big on humor. But the theme of this book is my belief that the greatest source of sustenance is the relationship that we have with ourselves.
Yes.
That is the thrust of this. And we tend as humans to want to go out for sustenance. We go for the shininess of things. I call it happy meal dating in here.
That's cute.
The pandemic is Mother Nature forcing us, saying, now, you're still not getting the lesson. So obviously I have to go a little farther, don't I?
I didn't know that the book came with voices. That's pretty cool. I like that.
I do voices. I have a history of being theatrical with or without medication. So.
We need the audio version with all those voices.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm working on that. I am. We're halfway done with the audio of this. It's funny. I tried in the beginning of the take to sound very sophisticated, and it just didn't come across real. I'm like, I'm a Jew from New York. Like, that's who I am. Like, I don't know how to not be a Jew from New York. So let me embrace that. Let me embrace my menopausal voice. Like, that's who I am, you know. Did I just say menopausal on a line?
That's okay.
That's fine.
We can edit it out if you'd like, but you know.
No, we will not. Absolutely not. Why would we do that?
Oh, that's funny. So tell us what were some of the insights from the book? Tell us some of the things that you were sharing.
Okay, so that was the biggest principle, the source of sustenance. And I talk about recognizing every chapter has to do with food. So one of my chapters, and today I want to focus on that, is recognizing when there's a bar of soap in your mouth.
Oof. Okay.
Yeah. And I talk in the book about how I had, and I have, this loathing reaction to the taste of cilantro. But for years, I ignored the fact that cilantro tasted like soap because I thought it would make me look demanding or, you know, high maintenance. And I thought maybe if someone knew, they would think there was something wrong with me. I mean, obviously I had oodles of self-esteem. That was sarcasm.
Well, you knew what your starting point was.
It's
you
a
know.
thing, though. It's a thing. Some people don't have the enzyme that creates a good taste from cilantro, and to those people, cilantro tastes like soap.
Yes, and I
Yes.
didn't know it until someone, and I talk about this in the book, this chapter, and it was like God was winking at me saying, you know, why can't you be true to yourself? Why can't you do that? And, you know, I have a friend who wears Spanx, I'm not mentioning her name, and she will wear them and purposely not eat when she goes to all these socializing events. But then when her husband goes to bed, she takes it off, and then she finally feels like she can eat. And that's a bar of soap. It's a BSM. It's funny. I'm giving a talk to a Jewish group, and they asked me to make a PowerPoint slide. So instead of bar of soap in the mouth, I put recognizing when there's a slice of bacon in your mouth.
Okay.
Because it's the same concept. Look, this book is nothing new. It's just done in a new way because I want people to wake up. I want people to realize there is a true connection between the thoughts you ingest, those emotional edible memes, and your reality, like Neville Goddard talked about, or Abraham Hicks talked about. There is this invisible tapestry that we weave when we digest thoughts that don't serve us. And if we don't pay attention, we end up in Diet Coke denial. So that's where this all comes together, this idea of, you know, and the pandemic, oh my God, the pandemic has really brought out all of this denial. We're getting, I'm regularly getting, I'm sure you're regularly getting phone calls from people who are, you know, hitting a wall emotionally because maybe before they had little comfort foods, no pun intended, that they could reach and get. Whether it's, you know, being busy with their friends or being busy with their work. Now everything's slowed down, not by choice. And the reality has to be faced. You can't ignore it. And so I say, then own up to your empty calories. Identify those empty calories. With dating, I call them A-rods. My sweet brother-in-law said, Sheri, you can't do that. He's famous. I said, what are you talking? What's an A-rod? I made that up. He said, no. He's married. He's going to marry Jennifer Lopez. So I looked him up. I'm like, oh, he's very cute.
This is especially funny when you're from New York because he plays for a New York baseball team, or played for a New York baseball team. I mean, this is great. She's hiding behind her book.
That's funny.
Well, now I know, and they make a beautiful couple, and there was no offense meant to Alex Rodriguez. It was purely coincidental because I call it the asinine rules of dating.
I love it.
And I have a friend, she was driving with her husband in the car taking notes on my book, and she read one of the A-rods and started cracking up, and I said, well, you know, her husband said, what's so funny? And she didn't want to tell him. And the A-rod of, and I got this from a male friend, I'm not making this up, apparently there's an A-rod of a man, when he's wealthy, should date a woman that's half of his age and add 3. Yeah, that's the perfect age for a rich man. Now, no, wait, divide by 2, add 7. And then if it's someone who's not wealthy, you add 9.
Okay.
Cracking up because her husband always would say that to her.
Oh, gee.
Yeah. You see?
Never heard of this having anything to do with wealth. I've only heard that people will say half your age plus 7 is the youngest that you're socially allowed to date. right? And it doesn't really work, obviously. But I'd never heard of this idea, which I think is a ridiculous idea for the most part, but I've never heard of it also connected to finances.
Yeah, apparently you can get younger if you have a lot of letters after your name or a lot of zeros in your bank, you your number. Or you always need to have sex after the third date. That's an A-Rod. I mean, who makes these things up? I mean,
I have no idea. I mean, I was looking for the manual for the longest time. I never did find it, so I couldn't tell you.
You found Hollywood in yourself. So
Yes. Well, actually, since I let go of Hollywood now that I think about it, but that's another story.
Hollywood?
Okay, so I'm curious. So how did you come up with the idea of using food as a metaphor for all of these things?
That's a great question. Elizabeth Gilbert, I don't know if you're familiar with her work, author of Big Magic.
I've read everything Elizabeth Gilbert has written.
She's amazing. I mean, who doesn't love her? She's, amazing. She wrote about an idea tapping you on the shoulder.
Right.
If you don't grab that idea, it's going to.
Someone else will.
This idea I was divorced in 2015, and Einstein's quote kept percolating. Again, there's that word, percolating, in my head. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I kept thinking, I am starving for connection. I am so hungry for companionship. I just need a little sweet tenderness in my life. I'm ravenous for connection. I'm ravenous to be held. And then I thought, wait a second, there's a lot of food words going on here. Writer. One of my friends said, your brain is like unicorns and rainbows on fire in your head. I can't find the book, but my mind, who knows? But I was a serial monogamist, and I thought, well, that's my comfort food. So if I want to grow spiritually, I need to get out of my comfort zone. And what would that look like for me? That would look like being on my own. That would look like standing on my own 2 feet and finding out what I think matters most. But the comfort food for someone else would be very different. And so I write about that in the Friendship Diet, that your comfort food and Cindie, your comfort food, somebody else's comfort food is going to look so different. For someone else, it might be, I've never been on a date. I don't trust people. I had a bad experience 20 years ago. I don't want to try. They're moving away from their comfort zone would look much different than mine. It would, maybe they would get set up on a date with someone, their first blind date, or maybe they would push themselves to strike up a conversation with someone. Someone who likes the comfort of anonymity and not getting attached and sleeps around, maybe their comfort zone would be to actually go on a date and get to know someone instead of always going from one person to the other, because some people do that. It's like a sexual addiction. And this book is for anyone who is finding themselves either alone or with someone, but not happy, where they're looking to grow out of that comfort. And I think the pandemic is really the perfect backdrop, because if you can't find the time now to go in, I don't know when you will.
That's true. I mean, we've discussed that topic many times in the last few months, but oh my goodness.
And also how everybody's situation is different, because there are people that are single and live alone and are now alone most of the time, if not all of the time,
Right.
and don't have the connection that they did have. And then there are also people who are suddenly at home with someone or with more than one someone. I have a woman that's in one of my groups that yesterday was the first time that she had been alone in her house for like months. And, you know, she's got a beautiful family that they're all crazy about each other. They do everything together and they love being together, but still to not have one moment of time. And her husband went somewhere and went to work, and there's nobody at the office. So took the daughter, and she had time alone to just like be alone and, you know, for a couple hours. And so she was celebrating that. And I was like, everybody's got a different situation. And like you said, you know, our comfort zone is rarely comfortable, right?
Yeah, that's just it. Yeah, just because you're used to it doesn't mean you like it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just comfortable. It's just too scary to go outside of it sometimes. But it doesn't mean that it's, you know, wonderful. It's just comfortable. It's familiar. That's the word I was looking for. Our comfort zone would probably better be labeled our familiar zone.
Right. I use the analogy of food, so I talk about comfort food. And
yeah.
then I go on to talk about identifying your ECCs. I use a lot of acronyms, identifying your empty calorie companions.
So tell me what's that a metaphor for? What's the empty calorie in someone's life, relationship wise?
Where they're not happy with who they are. And so they take things from others that don't really fulfill them, but make them busy.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So your empty calorie companions would be, God, I should read my own book.
Well, I can kind of see where you're going. Because
rebound cake. What did I say? You want me to remember what I actually read?
Yeah.
Okay. Empty calorie companions. What a concept. Reading your own book. Okay. The danger of empty calories. Oh, okay. So I have an example. Yes. One of my friends, she was in a marriage for 18 years. And she and her husband were the same religion, the same everything. Like they were perfect. They had the perfect children on paper. Everything looked great, you know. But they didn't have a true deep foundation of love. Things could look great on paper, so that's an empty calorie. But if you don't feel it, it's not gonna.
Okay.
And
Got
so
it.
they subsequently, unfortunately, she found out he was cheating. But the cheating is just a symptom because you weren't really getting fulfillment from the beginning.
It makes so much sense that I see this metaphor in a clearer way now, because even though you're eating, right? If you're eating empty calories, even though you're eating, you're going through the motions, and you might even be tasting it, but you're not nourishing yourself.
Exactly.
So any growth that comes out of it's probably going to be the kind of growth you don't really want.
Right, exactly. And you'll end up with rebound cake, or you'll end up with just you won't feel satiated. And I go into examples of that. I have a background, obviously, as a writer, but also as a teacher of English. So some of the feedback I've gotten regarding the writing prompts is they've been very helpful. And I think that comes from my background as an English teacher. I can't just leave students or readers to say, okay, now write. I guide you very specifically towards those conduits, so that you can have your own emotional, personal epiphanies. I'm not just going to leave you on the caloric edge and go, okay. So I talk about, yeah.
When you were talking about the empty calories, the phrase that kept going through my mind was sugar coating.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, we do. We sugarcoat things. We don't want to face things sometimes. And I feel like now with the pandemic and the riots and the politics, and then it's this great conflation, because we are living so interconnected now. And I remember you both mentioning on a recent podcast about time is much faster now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we're kind of being forced to not sugarcoat things.
I had this experience just recently. I put a sign in my yard that has that's rainbow striped, and it says, "In our home we believe Black Lives Matter, and love is love, and science is real." And and I posted a picture of it on Facebook, and I had someone comment that they said that they I can't remember the word they used, kind of like, I mistakenly or I stupidly checked the comments about that sign on, it's like a neighborhood app that I don't have, but I can't think of what it's called. Is it called Nextdoor or something? It's an app where people, they have to verify that it's really you at that particular address, and then they connect you with people in your neighborhood. Right. And she said, so 0 out of 10, I do not recommend you put that sign out. And I said, this is probably the reason I don't have that app. And then somebody asked her, why are you saying this? And she said, well, someone in my neighborhood was advertising that they knew where to get these signs, because they had the sign and thought it was a great sign, and hey, this is where you can get it. And they said the rest of the people in the app just tore her to shreds. And so the whole conversation was around, well, obviously then they were letting her know that she wasn't a fit for them to be friends with them, right? She holds different values than they hold.
Yeah.
But talking about sugarcoating it's not always easy, like what you're talking about, authenticity here, and being willing to, with the great example that you gave about cilantro. It's like, I don't want to stand up and say, I think it tastes terrible, because then people will judge me. Like, everyone over here is liking it. They're all eating it. They think it's good. And what am I, a weirdo? And it's like, no, you don't have the enzyme. And in the same way, though, it's not always easy to stand up and say, this is what I believe, because there are people that are going to not agree with you. Like this woman said in my thread, oh, they tore her to shreds just because she mentioned the sign. And I thought, oh, goodness. So here's a good question. Your book title is The Friendship Diet. And I think that's interesting, because it's not the relationship diet or the marriage diet or the lover's diet. It's the friendship diet. So it's like, and you mentioned at the beginning that our relationship with ourselves is like the foundation for everything. And Walt knows, I say this all the time. I say it to my clients and in my classes, that the whole universe is like a mirror for you. Mm-hmm. It's all your relationships are mirroring something back to you. Right. And so when you think about it that way, and friendships outside of like marriage and intimate relationships in a sexual way, but intimate relationships in a friendship way.
Yep.
What would you say is the what's the tip you have for being able to be authentic?
Well, you brought it up on your show the other day, which is why I thought, oh my, like the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. And I was cleaning out my closet at the time, which is so interesting, because I have a chapter in the beginning called Clean Out Your Fridge.
Okay. All right.
Oh my goodness, because it's on my docket for tomorrow, clean out the office. Yes.
Actually, the title is, what is that African or Black actor? I don't know what you're supposed to say anymore. What's in your wallet?
Yes.
So I wrote, what's in your kitchen?
Mm.
So the most important ingredient is awareness. That was what you talked about. I don't know if you recall that on a
yep.
show. Awareness. Yes. And so this book is real change occurs, and I write about that in the beginning. People are going to say, well, I don't really need to buy the book now, do I?
Yes, you do. There's no way we can cover everything in a book on a 1-hour podcast. So you need to buy the book. This is just the appetizer, right?
We know that by experience, having reviewed numerous books, none of which took one episode. They all took at least 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 episodes,
Exactly.
depending on how many chapters they had.
More. Let's
Yeah.
do more. Oh.
So this is when you walk by the bakery and you can smell those
Right.
little cakes and you're like,
That's
yeah,
right.
I got to go back and get the whole cake. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly, because you want to read the chapter called "The Myth of the Buffet Line." Mhm.
There you go.
I love it so much.
The two things that I think bring about change, regardless of romantic relationships, current employment situations, personal relationships with your parents, even if the people you love have parted. I don't care. The two things that I have gleaned in my 40 plus years on planet Earth is you need two things. You need reflection and you need action. And
Yes.
that's what this book does. It's those two staple ingredients. And what does that prefix? There's my English teacher going crazy. The prefix "re" literally means back or again. So your relationships are shining a light on who you are, just as much as it's shining a light on who they are.
Yes. 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 That's profound. That's it. That's it right there. Mhm.
Yeah. And what's happening when we reflect? We're looking back.
And that's actually quite daunting at times, because when you realize that that reflection is a reflection of what's going on in your life, then you say, well, my favorite way of saying it is, oh, darn, I got caught again. It's like, I can't ever escape myself.
Exactly.
You know, and it's often a reflection of how you are being with yourself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right? Like I tell this story occasionally, and that is that, you know, for years I thought, always being brought up to know that, you know, what you give out, you're going to get back, you know, that kind of teaching, you reap what you sow, that kind of thing. And I always tried to be really good to people. And I was in a very long relationship, 23-year marriage, and it was an abusive marriage. It wasn't physically abusive. It was very covertly emotionally abusive. So most people didn't see it. And, you know, what was interesting is that when I finally started getting to the point where I just had enough, but I couldn't figure it out, because I kept thinking, but if I'm good to people, and if I'm generous with people, and if I'm kind to people, that's supposed to come back to me. And I'm being kind and generous and all these things, and it's not coming back to me. Until one day I realized that the person I wasn't respecting and being kind and generous with was myself. Why? Because I was staying in a relationship where someone wasn't treating me with respect. So I was not respecting myself by standing up for myself. I wasn't respecting myself for creating strong boundaries and, you know, knowing what I needed and meeting my own needs. And so as soon as I did, everything changed. Now, you know, as soon as I did, everything seemingly fell apart, right?
Like I said, right? That's where you've just hit on a lot of things that I can relate to. And I think a lot of men and women, not just women, but I think there's a lot of people pleasers out there.
Yes. Yes. And that's a really good point. You know, I often explain the difference to people between being nice and being kind. Kindness is always important, but being nice isn't always appropriate. Being nice often looks like being a people pleaser. Yeah. Just like you said, right? And and when you can get the difference between the two, your life will change.
And I know from personal experience that when from my own lack of dating experience, I mean, I can't really call it dating experience because there wasn't all that much of it. But the little amount that I did have for that 20-year period before I finally met my wife, it was always a very, very short relationship. And usually it was a short relationship because of one of two or three different kinds of scenarios. One of which was what we were talking about here. I would meet somebody who was a people pleaser, and that never worked with me. And literally the whole thing would shut down usually within the first meeting. And then I'd look back at it and I'd say to myself, well, why was she behaving like that? Why wasn't she actually behaving like a human being? And then I would look at my own behavior and say, well, what was I doing to feed her the idea that I was treating myself any better? Oh, damn, I did it again.
You caught yourself.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we want denial. We want the sugar coating. But there comes a point where if you want to change, you gotta go within.
Mhm.
And it does keep changing with time. And you'll see it in your relationships. I mean, my own son, he's 17, and he said, I like you so much better now. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you were kind of like, I don't remember if he's a doormat or, but he said, I respect you so much, for who you are now. And then the other day I was walking with my 13-year-old, and I don't remember exactly how the whole conversation came up, but he matter of factly said, well, I mean, look at you. You're strong. You could do anything.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize how much I was manifesting in terms of perception.
Oh, yes. And kids, nothing gets by kids.
That's right.
Nothing. I mean, I have 2 sons as well, and they are in their 30s and off on their own, doing their own thing. But one of the things that brought me to the place where I knew, okay, I have to do something about this, when I was in that relationship, is that my son, who was at the time in his early 20s, I guess, said to me, how long are you going to let somebody treat you like this? And it was his dad, right? So it was like pretty powerful. And I realized, and I tell people this when I'm coaching people that are married or people that are in relationships that aren't working out well, that have kids, because I occasionally, well, pretty often, talk to people that are staying in a relationship because they have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell them, first of all, your kids know that you're not happy. And secondly, if you have boys and you stay, then you are showing them it's okay for a man to treat a woman however you're being treated. And if you have girls and you stay, then you're telling them that it's okay to be in a relationship where you don't matter, or whatever their situation is, right? And I think it's really important, because I know I've coached someone before where they told me everything that was going on, and I just asked them because they had a daughter that was in college, and I said, well, what if your daughter in college was in a relationship exactly like this one? What would, and they said, oh my goodness. So I would try to get her to leave, but they weren't willing to leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard sometimes to really take a clear look at what's going on and admit what's going on and be willing to make a change. But I've never spoken to anybody who, after they set boundaries, after they, created a different life for themselves, said they wish they would have not. They're always glad they took those steps, right? But it's not always easy.
And you start finding people who are living their truth too. That starts to happen. I noticed, just like a smoker, I've never been a smoker. I'm grateful for that one vice that I don't have. But just like a smoker can't stand the smell of smoke, apparently more than someone who, never smoked. I don't know, but that's what they say. When you give up your abused victimhood patterns of weakness and taking responsibility for everything, and you, like you said, Cindie, you create those boundaries, then you have no patience spiritually. It's like a toxicity for spending time with people who aren't living their truth. And I'm not saying I'm all that. Far from it. I'm a work in progress beyond belief.
We all are.
But I mean, like, I noticed I had a couple of friends who I was attracting friends who cheated on their spouses. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I didn't have I couldn't sit and break bread with those people knowing what I knew. And it wasn't for me to change that drama. That's for them to work out their own karma.
Yeah.
Sure. I've got a question from Jeffrey for you, especially in the food theme, because everything here is a food theme. His question is, are there any recipes in the book?
No. but I can give you a recipe that off the top. I'm a big baker and cooker, and maybe that'll be my next one. I don't know. I'm actually playing around with the title right now. I don't want to give it away, but
Okay.
I can give Jeffrey. Would you like a recipe?
I'm sure he would.
I can give you one that my kids love, and I've been meaning to give this to my friend. It's Piccadillo. Do you want that recipe? I came up with it.
Yes, we want it. Go ahead. Lay it on us.
So my kids love it. You take ground turkey. We've tried it with different things, but it works with ground turkey. Ground it, drain it, blah, blah, blah. Then take half a can of tomato paste, right? Tomato paste, raisins, okay? Balsamic vinegar, cinnamon, agave nectar.
Wow.
It is so good over a bed of rice. It's got the sweet and savory, a little bit of salt. So there.
See?
Right.
Oh my goodness. You just did that off the top of your head. That was fabulous.
Oh, well,
Very good.
thank you. You know, mother to mother, like you come up with these dishes and just,
Yep.
I don't measure them, but my kids love them. Well, one of them likes it without the raisins, but.
Well, it also occurs to me that your book does have recipes in it, because what we're talking about here are food as a metaphor for relationships. Your book does have recipes for relationships.
True. There's a chapter called The Best Dish. I wonder what it is. And there's another chapter, let's see, Why You'll Never Starve on the Friendship Diet.
Mm-hmm.
And what's another? Well, I can just read them. I don't even have to memorize them, right? There's no test.
There's no test, right? This is what an English teacher would say, right, Cindie?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. The Beauty of Brooklyn, Avoiding Microwave Madness.
Mm.
So that is an allusion to how in our culture we want things quickly. And we talked about time speeding up, but there's a difference between the natural order of the universe speeding up on its own accord as a reaction to us and expecting relationships to speed up.
Mm-hmm.
We want so if you, let's say you microwave, I remember in the 1980s, my parents got a microwave. It's like, oh my God, we're the Jacksons.
The science oven. Yes.
That's right.
The science of it. We thought, oh my God, just press a button and it's ready. Yeah, it's ready, but it's cold on one side, that oatmeal, it's hot on another. No, thank you. It's almost like Russian roulette with your taste buds, right? Like, okay. But for we want the oatmeal to simmer, and I talk about the basic ingredients of a successful relationship: vulnerability, honesty, compassion. But one of the biggest things is simmering. So many people, I mean, our culture is swipe left, swipe right. We don't give ourselves a chance to digest another person's company because we're so focused on getting to that end point. But the truth is there is no end point.
Yes, that's right.
That's something that happens early in relationships too. I remember when Louise and I first met, we were, well, I've told the story many times, and so our listeners know very well that I had been in that desert of relationships for about 20 years, gave up on relationships, and that's when Louise shows up. And then we meet, and the first meeting is a disaster, but we continue to meet after that, and after 3 or 4 dates, we're together. Well, about a month after that, after, we were just doing all this growing together, and things were moving really quickly. Talk about time speeding up. Louise calls me up one day and says, I need us to be apart. And I didn't understand what she was talking about. I said, why do we need to be apart? We're doing great. This is going a lot better than I expected, that's for sure. And she says, I'm sorry, I just need to be, I need like a couple days off. I said, okay. And I had no idea what was going on. Well, come to find out a few days after that, she was feeling overwhelmed with the pace of the relationship. It was all happening so fast, she couldn't process it. And she ended up making phone calls to her best friends to kind of just do what you just talked about, to let it simmer for a bit, to kind of get a sense of, whoa, slow this whirlwind down. I can't keep up.
Yeah. Yeah. And at least thank God your wife gave herself permission to do that.
Well, it helps when you're a trained psychotherapist, which she
Well,
is.
that's great. That's perfect. But so many of us don't, and we ignore it. And also we try to digest other people's nutritional habits. You know, if you're lactose intolerant and I'm diabetic, and I say, oh my God, you have to try this smoothie, you know, but it has cream in it, and you tell me, oh, and you know, these Twizzlers are amazing. It's not going to work. You can have your food, I can have mine, but it might not work. And you see that all the time. Couples who have swinging parties, other couples who go to church every Sunday, other couples who like to just stay on their own in the periphery, you know, get a home in the mountains, other couples who have to have their hands in every pot of the community. They're all right, but they're all right for those people. And so my book is, the diet is really what works for you. But the grounding one is the coffee date. And I talk about that too, you know, because the coffee date is the great litmus test. It's the great equalizer. You could be a plumber, they can be a neuroscientist, and together you're not getting into the appetizers or main course of a serious relationship. And I learned that early on once I was single, that, you know, because I had stopped dating in the 90s, and then I've been divorced 5 years. So when I had suggested, yeah, let's go out for Mexican, the man thought, oh, wow, she's serious. I didn't know that food is really equated to intimacy like that. So coffee date, coffee date from the beginning.
I have to admit, it's news to me. I was not aware of that one, but I can't rule that one out because I know I'm pretty different from all the other guys. I know that. So
I don't know. Our first date was a 5-star restaurant.
was it really?
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, well, symbolic for the relationship, I guess. Yeah.
I think you're right. That's wonderful. Yes.
Fantastic. No, this was news to me on the date. And it's interesting. Our comfort foods are always going to change. It's back to that elasticity of thought, that elasticity of spirit. Because my comfort food in the very beginning was being on my, being with someone, and not monogamy. And now my comfort food is being alone.
Which means that the perfect match is going to show up any minute.
Right.
That's what it means.
Yeah, look at Louise. I'm like,
well, I say that, you know, only half joking, because I was really concerned after my very long marriage that didn't work out, that, and I've told this story before, but I was really concerned that I would end up, I have several female relatives that have been married many, many times, right? Because the most reason was that they didn't want to be alone. So they would immediately fall in love and, you know, be in another relationship. And when that didn't work out, it was like a cycle. And I did not want that to happen to me. And I had been with someone for a very, very long time. And so, as a matter of fact, I had never lived by myself.
Wow.
I had lived at home, then I had lived with roommates, then I had gotten married and then, you know, I lived with my kids were still with me after my divorce. So when I told my friends, look, if I come tell you that, oh, I met some guy, and so I said, you have to just tell me no, because I decided I was going to be on my own for a while, as uncomfortable as that seemed. And the night that my 2 sons had moved out, my 2 best friends had moved away to other cities, all in the same week. So all of a sudden, all of my comfort food, right? All of the things that gave me a feeling of stability were gone. And I sat in a big chair in the middle of my living room and I cried. And then I pulled myself together and I was like, you're going to be okay. And then I decided I'm going to find out who I am. And I remodeled a house and I wrote a book, and I found out what I liked again, because I had lost myself in everyone else, in being a people pleaser. And at the moment, which took me years, 5 years, 5 years, 5 years, Sheri.
That's right.
At the moment that I was so comfortable with who I was, I felt so happy. I felt so authentic and real. At that moment, I had just written a book.
There were a few parallels going on here.
A lot of parallels.
He appeared.
At another talk, I might feel brave enough to open up.
He appeared. And I met him at an event that was happening in my town. We talked for like a half an hour. He asked me, he said, I would love to take you to dinner, and asked me for my number, and I gave it to him. And then I told him that I wasn't available for like a couple of weeks, and he still teases me to this day. Because I said something like, I'm all booked up. And he said to his friend, she's booked up? Like, what does she do that she's booked up? And so we joke about it a lot. But then he took me to dinner, and we went on another date a week later, and we really spent a lot of time getting to know each other. And I was completely clear in myself at that point, because I was like, I was in my late 40s, and I was like, I'm just going to be who I am. Like, I am who I am. And if that doesn't work, then it doesn't work. And I've never been as authentic in my life. And our relationship is amazing. And we got married November 11th last year, 2018, actually. But we've been together almost 10 years. So that's when it happened. It happened when I found my perfect combination of who I was, and was willing to just be that person. I can't wait to hear what happens.
This is fascinating. I mean, I got both of you. I'm talking to both of you. The parallel here is exact. I mean, I'm half expecting Sheri's going to send me an email in about a week saying, by the way.
That's great.
For my phone number. And I think it's because I love living on my own. I love my independence. And like you, I was in a really tough relationship. And who I don't want to get into it because we're live, and God knows what legal ears would hear. But the bottom line is, you work so hard to get your voice back. You work so hard to get your independence.
And it's amazing, isn't it? Like I can't remember if it was on the podcast or if I was speaking with a client, but one thing I did always is in the people pleasing area, was that I did it in my marriage, I did it everywhere, is that I always deferred to everyone else. What do you want? Where do you want to go for lunch, Cindie? Oh, I don't care. Where do you want to go? Like, I always deferred to everyone else. And one time, my friends who we met for years every week, and I couldn't meet that week because my little kids were sick or something. And they called me afterwards to tell me how the meeting went and where we were going next week. And I got really angry. I didn't show it because I couldn't show my anger at that point in my life because I pushed everything down. But I hung up the phone and I was like, why am I so angry? And I literally, I didn't hear an audible voice, but it was about the clearest I've ever heard my higher, wiser self said to me, well, I thought you wanted to be last. You always put yourself last.
Oh, wow.
And I said, oh my goodness. And I realized, and at that moment, I made the decision not to defer to other people about every single thing, right? Like, I had to find, and I decided that the next time someone says, what movie do you want to see? What do you want to eat? What do you want to do? I will give them an answer. And it was really hard at first. Like, I didn't even know. And then the thing that solidified this for me was a friend of mine showed up with a present for me, a blouse, an expensive blouse wrapped in a beautiful box, and said, when I saw this blouse, it was so you, it was screaming your name. I knew you had to have it. So I bought it for you. And I opened it up, and it was the ugliest thing I had ever seen. Like, it was not, I'm sure it was beautiful for someone else, but it was not me. It was not me at all. And yet when this person saw it, they saw me. And that's how inauthentic I had been for so long.
Wow. Yes. The gift was a manifestation of what you were reflecting to the world.
Yes. Which was not me. Right. No. And so you're right. It takes work to find yourself and to bring yourself back online, so to speak, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And I don't believe that you can have a powerful, authentic, deep relationship with someone if you're not in that place.
True.
We've talked about
Yeah,
signs
true.
too in the past on all the episodes. And in that case, you got a very unpleasant sign. And I mentioned that because we human beings have a tendency to only want to see the good signs.
Oh
You
yeah, no, it
wanted
was
to see the
definitely
unpleasant signs.
like Sheri said, it was a manifestation of what I was reflecting.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
you could have ignored that. You could have skipped that. You could have
oh
you
yeah,
could have actually played the nice card again. Oh, that was so nice of you to think of me in that way. You could have done
yeah.
that.
Well, I mean, I did. Of course, I said thank you so much. I appreciate that you.
But I mean, you
thought
could have
of me
stuck.
that
That could have been your main way of relating to it. Instead, you were honest enough to say, "Wow, I attracted this."
I just said, oh my goodness, like I have got to find out who I am because it's not this.
Well, I
That's a
agree
big
with
deal.
Walt. I think it's commendable that you reflected that when it wasn't a positive reflection and took
Yeah.
it as an opportunity to grow and say, I don't like this. I don't like that blouse. And you don't have to offend someone, to be honest. Like you
No.
said, there's a difference between being nice and kind.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It makes me think of Louise Hay. I don't know if you, of course, you both read the book. What is the book? Heal Your Body, Heal Your Life. Or
Right. You can heal yourself. Yes.
And she writes about how she was a people pleaser, and she was in elementary school, and they were giving out cake, and they said plenty of cake for everyone. Everyone got cake, and Louise did not get any cake. And she realized in hindsight, it was because that was what she was admitting to the world, that she was not worth getting a piece of cake. She didn't deserve it. And I do believe, yeah, and it's very empowering when you recognize the blouse, when you recognize the cake, and you grow from it, and you say, no more. I'm in the driver's seat, because we're all gifts to the world. Everyone's important. I mean, Anita Morjani, who I love, that woman, she talks about the best gift you can give is the gift of your own company and just nurturing yourself. And I think a lot of the problems we're experiencing in the world, they start in our own backyards.
The healing of it certainly does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to start. It has to start at home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sheri, I can't wait to dive into your book further.
Thank you. I'm honored. Please, please spread the word. I encourage you to leave reviews. That helps the people who need to find the book find it. Obviously,
I presume it's on Amazon. That's usually the go-to place for finding books.
Yeah, you can Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's available Kindle. It's available in the paperback, not hardcover. And I have a website. Every Thursday, I post a new blog. This Thursday is going to be about being hungry for certainty.
Tell us how we find your website.
Right, good point. www.sherry-jacobs.com. It's a little hyphen.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys are just wonderful. You're like oozing positivity. I love it. I feel this is the equivalent of being in a Trader Joe's store.
Well, I'll tell you what, from my perspective, it's been fun. We've had a few listeners on lately, and it's been fun because it tells me a lot more about who it is who's been listening. That's one of the hardest things about doing a podcast. You know people are listening. You can see the numbers on a chart, but you don't really know who they are until you get to know them.
That's true.
And we're getting to know our listeners who are choosing to reach out. And I'm liking that. That's really very informative and reassuring. I mean, first of all, not to overuse the word, I'm finding we have a lot of really nice listeners.
You attract what you are, as Abraham Hicks said. Everything, I drool over all the people you reference, and it's very inspiring, and we need that more than ever.
But to carry on to the more powerful word, I'm also learning just how kind our listeners are. We have our listeners, and you're in this group, are people who just ooze empathy. They ooze kindness. They have a very positive, almost doesn't even say it. I mean, I like the way Cindie and I have kind of done it. It's more like, I like this kind of person. this person feels good to me. That's what I'm really enjoying about it.
You're reflecting what you are. So
Exactly.
that's really what it is. It feeds on itself. No pun intended. I really did not do that on purpose. Yeah.
I don't think you did any of it on purpose. I think it just kind of came out because you think food. That's all of your vocabulary is food based. Of course, it's got to be a title that includes food. How could it not?
Oh, well, maybe we should call this the colonoscopy of the soul. That's the second one.
Oh.
Walt is just encouraging me.
Okay, so it's all my fault. I get it. All right. No, seriously, it's been great having you on the show. We really do appreciate it. Before we let everybody go, though, there is some business we have to take care of, and that is we have an app out there now, the LOA Today app, and we want all of our listeners to start downloading it. Fortunately, people are downloading it, but for the last week now, we have had both an iPhone and an Android version of the app, which accounts for about 95% of our listeners. So guess what, guys? You got no more excuses. The app is it's there, and all you have to do, in fact, there was even an excuse the first few days because not enough people had searched on it. So if you searched on LOA Today, it wasn't popping up. Guess what, guys? That excuse is gone. It pops up to the top now on both the iPhone and on the Android phone, either the App Store or the Play Store. So that excuse is out the window now, okay?
I'm gonna join.
And it's actually going to be really important because everything that we put out is going to come through the app now. We're going to be creating a live stream room. It's not there yet, but it's going to be created and it's going to come on the app. I'm in the process of adding Daniel Mangina's work that he's sharing with us. He gave us two of his works. He gave us an audio course and an ebook. Wow. The audio course is Beyond Intention. The ebook is Beyond Wealth. And literally leading up to the show today, I was doing finishing touches on Beyond Wealth, making sure that it was all right for the app because it's going to be in the next version of the app. This is the kind of thing that's going to happen. The app is going to be where we put out all this stuff. So we really are saying, I mean, it's in your best interest to download the app is what I'm saying. So enough said on that one.
Subtle, effusive plug.
Exactly. Yes. Sometimes subtlety is called for, and sometimes it's calling for the 2x4. You just have to kind of
There you go. Paralleling Mother Nature and having a sense of humor.
That's right. Well, hey, sense of humor. Is there a better way to be high vibe than laughter?
No, exactly.
I personally don't think there is one. It's my favorite. I know that.
No, absolutely. In fact, I'll leave you guys with this. So this is where my creativity is waxing these days, and it's relevant to what you're talking about. I'm writing about these memes that I'm doing meme writing apparently at 47. How cool am I?
Hey, Sheri, I've been doing this stuff at age 63, and I'm like, I'm like the old generation at this point, so if I'm doing it, hey, anybody can do it, right?
We're all so cool. We're all so hip. Age is just a number. So this is, I don't know if you could see this, humor.
We can.
And I know
that you learn your date thinks COVID is.
So this is how I spend my time now. Just infusing humor whenever I can, because we all need it. We're all, I'm sorry, we're hungry for it, but we are
Mm-hmm.
hungry for humor.
Sure. Well, we're hungry to feel good.
Yeah,
a lot of us don't know that.
That's it.
Right.
We all just want to feel better.
Yeah, a lot of
every choice we make is in the service of feeling better.
It is.
That's it.
Every single one. So, well, very good. Well, thank you, Sheri, for coming on, sharing your story and sharing your stories too. I mean, both of them, really. We appreciate that very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And thank you, Cindie. As usual, you hit all the right notes. I mean, you never do miss. Well, we have talked about the word sin, but even with your sins you hit, I don't know how you do that. It's just amazing. You're just good at it. That's all there is to it.
Okay, well, that's good. I hit my sins.
Yeah, it's absolutely perfect. So anyway, thank you, live streamers, too. And thank you especially to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.